Story time about Sick and Twisted 2004. I could go into details of what the match was about, being a pink slip match, which means the person who got pinned would get fired. I could talk about it being a handicap match, in essence, because my partner was injured right before it, and it was uncertain whether she was going to show up or not. Talk about being television champion. Talk about the feud that existed. But I figure, why do that? That's pretty much in the past. What I can talk about is my feelings about the match. PCW as a company was trying to expand. We were trying to renegotiate a television deal with UPN, but both sides hadn't agreed, so we were without television. And I was the television champion. To push some young guys along. We had some veterans. Morale was kind of hit and miss. Wasn't all great. So we were kind of at a thing. And so we were trying to bring up some guys and some girls, and Claudia G. Slice, who would later on become Wally Darkman, and JT LaMotta, who is now known as the Mind of Wrestling JT LaMotta, were a few of the names. And some of the veterans were not really for bringing some of the youngsters because of attitudes and feeling like they hadn't earned it, hadn't paid their dues. I was always kind of different about it because I started doing shows relatively young and being placed high up on cards early in my career, so I always felt like, man, it's not so much how many years they put in, it's where the passion is. And working with Slice and LaMotta was one of those things. I was friends with those guys too, so it was cool. And being in a pay-per-view or DVD taped match on a pretty good show and having some decent build-up really was great. You know, it was a chance for these guys who I felt were really talented but needed a story for the people to get behind, and a feud with a guy who was established, give him the rub, kind of, so to speak, and get Claudia involved and show that she could compete in a man's world to a degree. So that's why it was memorable to me, because it was with some friends and guys I was passionate about, really doing well with. And I also like the video because it is the first highlight package I've put together, so look for more of those. But that's it. It's short and sweet. Since the story time was so short, I figured I'd answer a few questions that I got. Some from videos, some from my mailbox, and some from just comments that are put on my channel. First one's from Joe's Gonna Kill You, and it's what made me decide to be a wrestler and who was my favorite wrestler growing up. I got into wrestling, I thought I could do it. It kind of clicked in my head. I always felt like I was destined for something great and that I had a calling, and wrestling represents so much that I like. The physicality, the brotherhood for the most part, the travel, being kind of like a musician, but also being an actor in senses, and being partial stuntman and being someone that people could look at and where the spotlight would be right on you. So that's what made me want to be a wrestler. Who my favorite wrestlers were, it's always changed, but really Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels are the two top on that list. And there's other guys, Austin Rock, Hogan, Warrior, I mean, the Von Erichs, the Freebirds, the Horsemen, I mean. So that's kind of where I grew up. You know, Dusty Rhodes and Terry Funk, and you know, those guys really do something for me. So, Justin Bizard, I think that's how you pronounce it, asked me, which do I like being more, a heel or a face? And again, I like both. There's good aspects to both, and there's fun on both aspects, heel or face. I just want to be a guy that entertains. I want to be someone that the people buy into and believe it's real when I'm out there and are genuinely entertained. and suspend the disbelief for just a little bit. Nick1700 asked me, by the end of my career, what do I hope to have accomplished? And I would love to be the main event of WrestleMania. I would love to be in the main event match of WrestleMania, or Bound for Glory, or to put a company on my back and make it into something. I would love to be as big of a star, if not bigger, than the likes of Jericho, the likes of Shawn Michaels, the likes of Bret Hart, you know, right up there. I want people to say Steve DeMarco is right up there with those guys. And Cena 4592 asks, what do I think of hardcore extreme or deathmatch style wrestling? And honestly, my opinion of it is, as long as there's a story behind it, I'm for it. I'm cool with it. But when there's not a story and it's just thrown out there for the sake of being thrown out there, then it's almost stunt work. I'd rather there be a story. I think you can tell a story. As long as you can tell a story, I like it. It's entertaining, it's exciting. You know, death matches. But like I said, got to be a story behind it. The Third Degree 22 asks, is wrestling something I do full time? No, it does not pay the bills for me right now. I hold a full-time job. On top of going to the gym and going to wrestling, I hold a full-time job. And it's completely different than what I do in the ring. So, there you go. Is there fair money on the indies if you're a name? If people know you, have seen you on TV, there's probably a fair amount of money. I'm not one of those guys. It's much similar to being in an indie band starting out. That's as comparable as it can be. And the money is pretty much right there. So, there you go. Sniper2448 asked me, what do I think of John Cena? I think John Cena's not bad. He's not a bad wrestler. He's a great entertainer. People buy into what he does. They believe it. There's passion there. And he gets it. I say he gets it a lot more than a lot of guys. And for a guy who's having to learn as he goes, and I mean learn, like, he didn't have that much of an indie career before he got signed and before he started getting on TV. So I mean, he's come a long way. Very long way. And his schedule, man, is probably one of the hardest. Now that he's injured, he gets that break, but when he comes back, he's going to be back to probably 6 days a week. Constant appearances, not having much of a life, man. I got much respect for him. May not always agree with what he does in the ring, but from a wrestler, man, I respect the cat. He would be a guy I would look forward to working if I ever got into WWE. Bradmaster13 asked me, the worst bump I've ever taken. Wow. I'm going to sit here and say, like off the mat, brain busters, certain types of suplexes, the death drop like Steve Williams used to do. Some guys have done. Brainbuster, I've mentioned. Off a ladder, choke slam. A couple of dirty bumps off a cage. And the entire cage match of my PCW title defense against Tim Storm. Sick and Twisted, I think, 2005. That entire match hurt. I really shouldn't have been wrestling. rvdtito4life with a 1 asked me, what are my thoughts of rvdtito4life subscribing to me? And I gotta say, it's a cool thing. I've met Bill. I met him at the last PWA show. We talked a little bit, and you know, man, I'm glad those guys subscribe to me. You know, I take it as an honor. Like, wow, you actually, guys who have a lot of subscribers. But you know, man, I look forward to all my subscribers. All my subscribers to me are like rvdtito4life or T Slayer, Crazy Mike. I just wish the community as a whole would get together and try to do more with what we've got. We've got YouTube, man. So again, I appreciate everyone coming to the Lucha Lounge. Look for my next video. It's going to knock your heads off. No, I wouldn't say that. But hopefully you'll enjoy it. Again, stay cool, stay sexy, stay classy. But hey, you're all those because you're at the Lucha Lounge.